Okay. Prosperity. So, tying that, what we talked about last time, nothingness. So tying that to prosperity, I think is interesting, right? Is a job, because we just got through dealing with a study that talked about how essentially mammon is where you work for money, and to be in the kingdom finances, to make things flow, that means that the money is supposed to be working for you.
Yeah.
So then, is nothingness also linked to just having a 9-to-5? Because for most people, if you have a 9-to-5, if you ask them, would you volunteer to be there? They're like, nah, bruh.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me think about that one out loud. Is nothingness linked to having a 9-to-5?
And only a 9-to-5.
Only a 9-to-5.
Yeah, we'll say only a 9-to-5. You went to school for, et cetera, but there is a nagging thing of, if you did not get paid for that, would you still be doing it?
So this is a purposeless 9-to-5. This is not, I'm living the dream. This is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to help disabled kids. This is not that. This is, I'm dragging myself out of bed just to get a paycheck. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that existence, right? Hating what you do, feeling like you're losing your soul. Yeah, I'm going to tie that to nothingness.
What if you don't hate it, right? What if you don't hate it, but it goes back to what Zach was saying too, which is it does only serve you and your household?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought about that one too. You mentioned the lesson that we were just looking at, where we were looking at money and finances, and the statement that the teacher said, Evangelist Mark Howard from London, Kentucky, shout out. He said that
we'll have him on him sometime.
Money should work for you. You should not work for money. And so thinking about acquiring money, but without the intention of putting it to work and without the intention of assigning it purpose, yes, is nothingness.
I think it's well stated. What do you say, Zach?
It's funny, we just got through a study earlier today talking about finances, and the pastor he had mentioned, Pastor Mark mentioned, finances almost in the state of a river. It has to flow.
Yes.
So
it's a great analogy, by the way.
Tying that into a purpose now, almost like if your 9-to-5 does not flow you forward, if you do not prosper and continue to make progress in your life, even though your life is continuing, you're raising good kids, you have a good life, and that's fine. But if you're not continuing, if you're not building something, if you're not affecting people, even if you have a good life, if you're not continuing your influence or your legacy or things like that, ultimately you're going to live a good life and you'll die. But there's no seeds from that. There's no flow. Like your legacy and your heart and your love, they stop when you end.
Yeah.
So if there's no flow or anything like that, to me, that's another form of nothingness, and continuing from that, a lost purpose.
Yeah, I feel like we just slapped a bunch of people in the face, perhaps well deserved. Right, but I want to confess that out loud. I feel like we just slapped a whole bunch of people in the face by saying that yes, you have not done, I'm going to use my quotation fingers here, bad, right? You've not done wrong. You just haven't done well.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you're saying about the argument of doing, you can do what is good,
yes,
but does that mean you've done what is right?
Yes. Yeah, and those are two completely different things.
Is the expectation, well, what is prosperity, do you guys think?
Yeah, so that's right. So now you're bringing me back, because with what we've just said, we've got to define prosperity in a way that is clear. So I'm going to say now prosperity is abundance based on no. So I'm out loud, folks. Real time here. Profit based on purpose, or profit produced by purpose. That's what I'm going to call prosperity. Profit produced by purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So you didn't just work, but you worked with intentionality. You worked with love in mind. You worked in obedience to God. Paul said, I may read it here in a moment. His ministry is to call people to the obedience of faith. Right. So if you responded to the call of the obedience of faith, and you have been savvy enough to make a profit off of that obedience, that's prosperity.
Because your gift will make room for you, right?
Your gift not only has made room for you, but your gift has actually gone beyond that, right? So your gift has gone beyond the multiplication of a room. Your gift is now in the area of exponents. Right? Your gift is making babies.
That's a T-shirt right there. That's maybe in a different context. I'm sure somebody could take that the wrong way. That's funny.
And I think that most people think about prosperity as it only being greed, but I think that when you look at people who are prosperous, they have involved a ton of people into the process.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I get that, like the people got disgusted with the Paris Hiltons of the world, what I'm saying, and these, trust fund babies and everything, and I get that because they had no perspective of what it took to actually get that. They just kind of give it to them, and because they want their kid to have all the things they never had, but spare the rod and spoil the child, that type of thing. It can lead to disaster because we don't have context in terms of experience of what it took to get something. There's no way to appreciate it, and if you don't appreciate things, then you're never grateful, and you're always kind of angry and looking at what you don't have. Versus being centered in what it is and appreciating what you actually do have. And when I look at prosperity, I think it gets attacked a whole lot because people think that, someone is hoarding it all in, and that's not how you get prosperity. There's a guy, we all know him, E.T. the hip-hop preacher, and Gary Vee, and all these, and Tony Robbins, and all these guys out there, and they actively talk about, if you were to give me a 9-to-5 right now, like, you would fire me in a week.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You would fire me in a week. It'd be over. I could never hold a job ever again. But again, they move from having a 9-to-5 to moving into position to having their gift make room for them. And that's what duplicates, and that's what prospers. So...
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, please.
So, and along with what you just said, and really, I think, to me, the underlying kind of baseline for what Shamar was talking about, even to me, the root of prosperity is the willingness to overcome your circumstances. So even with what Shamar was saying, and even with what you were saying, those entrepreneurs are effective because they were willing to overcome what was in front of them to prosper. So even if it's difficult or it doesn't produce results in a given time that you expected, if you are disciplined and allow yourself the time and even the grace for yourself to overcome your circumstances, then eventually you will reap a harvest and you will prosper, regardless of whether it's just in your family life or even in your 9-to-5. I think there can be prosperity there. Or whatever your venture is, but even in a spiritual sense, if you're looking to prosper spiritually and expanding the kingdom, you have to overcome yourself, the battles you have, the battles that you take on with other people, your financial battles, and everything else. And even along with that, Justin talks about the 9-to-5. I think in that context, he almost sees a 9-to-5 as almost like a cage. So, like, if you're caged in a 9-to-5, how well can you prosper?
Yeah.
So he mentions those entrepreneurs like Gary Vee and Tony Robbins and, people like that. I think they feel that kind of mentality is a 9 to 5 is almost like a cage in and of itself. You can only prosper so much if you're caged to a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because even with 9 to 5s, and like
not that they're bad,
yeah,
but
they're not bad. It is the question though of does the Bible, does God want you to glean in someone else's field for the rest of your life?
Yes.
Correct.
Versus for a portion of time.
Yes.
That's the argument.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So I found the scripture that I was talking about. Romans chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 1. I'm going to jump down to verse 5. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle. So I'm going to assume that not everybody who's listening to this podcast has been raised as a Christian. So I'm going to translate a couple words here, not to insult you, but to make the message clear. So that word apostle literally means sent one. Right? So it implies purpose, that you have been sent to carry a message. So I'm going to do some paraphrasing here. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be sent, set apart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's verse 1, verse 5. Through whom we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith for the sake of his name among all the nations, including you who are called to belong to Jesus Christ. Right? Last one, verse 7. To all those in Rome who are loved by God and called to be saints. Right? Every time he uses that word called, he is embedding purpose in that call. Right? To all those who are in Rome who are loved by God and who are called, who are purposed by God to be saints. Grace to you, right? Favor from God to you. And peace. The peace of satisfaction is not the right word. The peace of doing what you were designed to do. So grace to you, the favor of God to you, and the peace of doing what God built you to do from God, our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. That is purpose. And I would argue that Paul is probably one of the most prosperous men who has ever lived, although I don't know that he died wealthy. Right? But in terms of a harvest, in terms of reaping a massive return, there are many who disdain Christianity because they consider it not to be the religion of Jesus, but the religion of Paul. I don't think that's entirely true. In fact, I don't think that's true at all. But moving on from there, I think that does speak to how profitable Paul was because he lived, moved, breathed, and swam his purpose. And his purpose was to call everybody else to the obedience of their purpose.
Which goes back into there can't be in nothingness. I think that
Right.
I think that the 9 to 5 can be a point of rebellion because I'm educated here. Right. I'm qualified here.
Yes.
But this other thing that keeps me up at night, the thing that I really care about, the thing that I've been wanting to do and I feel I should be doing since I was a little kid, the thing that they talk about, what is your purpose? They talk about that and they narrow it down this way. The thing that you love, the thing that upsets you, the thing that angers you, and the things that makes you sad. Within the context of those things are things in which you can find out what your purpose actually is.
Yeah.
That's where you kind of pinpoint it. If it just gives you an emotional reaction, if it causes these kinds of things, then that's where you can begin into that. And if the 9 to 5 is not even hinting at that, the 9 to 5 will hint at it a little bit,
Yeah.
but the 9 to 5s have a cap.
Yes.
That's really the argument, right? Every 9 to 5 that you have has a cap, and it also caps on your time.
Yeah.
So that means that, we talk about this in business. More money that you have, the less time that you have. More time that you have, less money that you have is what they say.
Yeah.
So, but we don't get time back.
Yeah. So I want to pivot off something that you said a couple sentences earlier. You talked about education that I think is valuable. So you will not hear me talk down education, probably ever. But I want to say that there is a distinction between education and skill. And so Paul, right, if you read particularly the book that I've been spending some time in lately, the book of 2 Corinthians, he lays out some of his skills. He was educated by Gamaliel, he was a Pharisee, right? All those things were his education. But his skill was calling people to the obedience of faith, or as I've paraphrased earlier, calling people to the obedience of purpose. But really, you could probably say calling people to the obedience of prosperity, right? Because prosperity is linked to purpose. And so I think that there has been a shift in focus. I think people have moved away from skill, right, which is linked to purpose. They have moved to education, which can be the empty, right? So we're back in nothingness, the empty acquisition of facts and knowledge.
It's kind of like the people who work in, and this is not to talk down to anyone.
Not at all.
None of this is not to talk down to anyone, but it's kind of the person that's, at a factory or working on, just doing this manual labor type of stuff, which is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they know all this information about stuff that, they can just go on and on and on and on and on and everything, and it's like, but none of that information actually served you anything.
Yeah.
Because, I know none of these things, and yet we're in the same position.
Yeah, I would take it even a slightly higher brow than that, right? So I think that many people who work in factories can be skilled. Not all of them, right? So, for example, the car, what's the word I'm looking the car line, right? The assembly line was designed to make you financially prosperous, but completely purposeless. Right? So there's, I'm not going to say no skill, but very little skill by design in the assembly line. But I know many people who have graduated from college, which with a bachelor's degree, I'm going to pick on, because I see that most. But some of them with a master's degree who are highly skilled, but will look at you and in a moment of clear honesty say, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah.
Had all the intelligence in the world at his disposal.
Yep.
And could not figure out what the heck to do.
Yeah. So the difference between the person who's on the assembly line and the person who's graduated from college is not that one has more purpose than the other. It's really that one has more depth than the other.
Right.
I think that's why that movie resonates with so many people. I think there's a hidden cognition, or there's a hidden, I don't know, there's something hidden in there to where within a person's own being, in a person's own spirit, to where it's like, oh my God, I'm not a janitor here or whatever it is, but there's something about the fact that I have this thing that I'm sleeping on and I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
I'm very skilled at this one area. So just like what he could do math all day long, and was a joke to the intelligentsia of the finest institution in the world, he was like, this is a joke. I can't believe you're too stupid to do this stuff.
Right.
So he had high levels, masterful levels of intelligence and everything. He could discern and pick you apart by whatever that, in terms of, how you would actually use a brush stroke. So he would know information about what kind of person does this kind of brush stroke and things like that in terms of a painting he was looking at, and this completely deconstructed one of the professors in a second. So he had this massive intelligence, and yet there's that scene where he throws out some kind of things like, what do you want to do? And he's like, you've got a slick answer for everything, but that's the one question that you can't answer because you don't know.
Right.
And this is not to be hard on anyone. This is about really looking at your purpose here.
Yeah.
Because you can't ignore or hide within a 9 to 5 only. Like I said, this is about only 9 to 5. So everyone here, let's say for myself, because I'm in ministry full time, but everyone here has a 9 to 5,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
But they don't only have a 9 to 5.
Correct.
If that makes sense, right? So they don't only have a 9 to 5. There's something that they're building on the side of this because their gift is going to make room for them, and they're following that also. Is that easy? No. Is it 12:15 a.m. and my pastor has to be at work at what time?
Usually 8, and if I'm on my game, I'm at the gym by 5.
Yeah, by 5 o'clock. So he's up by 5 o'clock, and it is 12:15 right now.
Yeah.
But that is the game. Sometimes,
That goes back to what I said earlier. That's the willingness to overcome, right?
Yeah.
It's the willingness to overcome your circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And even, you talk about prosperity and we're talking about purpose and nothingness. I think you could almost put that in an equation. You're talking about, the theme of Good Will Hunting. He has all these skills, but he doesn't know what to do with it, right? So I think when you look at prosperity, you could almost equate that to, prosperity equals purpose plus focus.
Yeah.
That's a good word right there.
Because, if you have a focus, you know what you're doing. So once you couple that focus with a purpose, you automatically have prosperity.
Yeah.
And that could be anything. That could be spiritually. That could be relationally, financially. Yes. Whatever. The placeholder of what your purpose is. Whatever your purpose is fine. And you couple that with a focus, you will automatically equal prosperity in whatever that venture is.
Yeah, that's a good word right there, definitely. And I would say this last thing too is that focus is about cutting out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So focus, the way you focus something is that you cut this out, you cut that out, you cut this out, you cut out all of these things in order for the thing that you care about, the highest priority, to come through. So I think it's a wonderful definition of that in terms of going into prosperity,
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. So are we moving on next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is New Hope. Star Wars. Just kidding.